June 2nd, 2021. 2:14 a.m. DeKalb County, Georgia. The house was silent. Too silent for a home with 3 children. She thought it was the wind. But when she stepped into the hallway, he was already there. He didn't knock. He didn't break in. But then he was inside the house, between her and the children. The next 17 minutes would be carved into history, not for what she did, but for what she survived. This is not the kind of crime that starts with a gunshot or ends with siren. It starts with a shadow and ends in fire. What happened that night wasn't random. You're about to hear what no child should ever witness, what no mother should ever endure. But you must hear it, because somewhere, someone is still locking their windows tonight, hoping that what she feared won't find its way back. It was 2:21 a.m., March 9th, 2022, in the quiet suburb of Patterson Grove, just outside Baton Rouge, a neighborhood where porch lights flicker on timers, and people still sleep with their doors unlocked. But that night, a single 911 call shattered the silence. A neighbor's voice, shaking, urgent. There's screaming and smoke. I think someone's inside. By 2:29 a.m., Engine 14 arrived to a house already swallowed in flame. The Reyes residence, white trim, brick siding, 2-car garage, was burning from both ends. The front door warped inward from the heat. Windows ruptured in dull pops. The fire didn't move like it should. It leapt, as if it knew where to go. Inside, the layout was ordinary. An open living room, a family photo wall, a child's bike still leaning against the laundry room door. But nothing about what responders found was ordinary. 3 small bodies, 2 girls, 1 boy, were huddled in the upstairs hallway. Charred, fused, indistinguishable except for dental tags and the faint outline of tiny shoes. Their arms were bound, their mouths gagged. The fire didn't kill them quickly. The coroner would later say they died scared, together, likely watching the flames come for them. Downstairs, in the deep end of the backyard pool, a woman was found, Amanda Reyes, 33, naked, trembling, burn-free, still breathing, but not speaking. She couldn't move. She wouldn't blink. Paramedics said she just stared, not at them, but back at the house, at what she had left behind. At 3:07 a.m., while EMTs loaded her into the ambulance, a fire marshal walked the perimeter. He stopped near the garage. There, pressed into a sheet of half-melted plastic, was a boot print, size 11. It wasn't Amanda's, and it wasn't from a firefighter. There was no sign of forced entry. But the accelerants told their own story. 2 point of origin, the kids' hallway upstairs and the kitchen floor below. And no gas leaks, no faulty wiring, no accident. This wasn't a house that caught fire. This was a home that had been lit. The neighbors didn't hear a struggle. No one saw headlights or footsteps. And yet, within minutes, 3 children were gone, and the mother was underwater, eyes open, unblinking, as if she couldn't bear to look away. The detectives would ask the most difficult question of all. Who walked through that door? Every night, just after she tucked the kids in, Amanda Reyes would stand on her porch, barefoot, hoodie zipped up to chin, a chipped mug of decaf in her hands. She wasn't watching anything in particular, just listening. A distant train, a neighbor's wind chimes, the stillness of a neighborhood that slept deeper than she ever could. To most, she was background. Polite nod at school drop-off, thank yous at the mailbox. Quiet, consistent, and tired in a way that didn't ask for help. Amanda was 33, a former dental technician who never quite found her footing again after the divorce. The kind of woman who fixed backpacks with safety pins, counted grocery coupons like prayer beads, and swore she didn't mind when Christmas meant only 1 gift per child. Her children were her reason. Jackson, 10, loved building things that never worked but always meant something. Ellie, 8, a shy spark who carried picture books in her backpack long after she learned to read. And Noah, 6, sticky fingers, dimpled cheeks, and a scream laugh that echoed like summer. Their apartment wasn't much. 2 bedrooms, thrift store furniture, paint chipping near the vent. But Amanda made it feel like something whole. Taco Tuesdays, movie nights, sticky note lunchbox messages that said, "Be brave today." A neighbor, Mrs. Jennings, recalled. They used to leave chalk drawings on the sidewalk. One time with a whole zoo, penguins and giraffes and flamingos with little hats. It stayed for days, 'cause no one wanted to wash it off. From the outside, it was ordinary, but ordinary can be deceiving. Records show a restraining order, filed 4 years earlier, later withdrawn. The man's name isn't mentioned in Amanda's daily life again. Not in texts, not in emails, not even in the stacks of sticky notes she left on the fridge. But his absence was loud, and her routines meticulous. She changed locks twice in 1 year, always checked windows twice before bed, kept her phone plugged in next to the front door, never upstairs. A teacher at Ellie's school remembered Amanda staying after a parent-teacher meeting. She asked if there was a safe word, in case the kids ever needed to signal something, without saying it. She didn't say what she was afraid of, but fear has a shape, and sometimes it becomes part of the wallpaper. What no one saw, not the teachers, not the neighbors, not even barista who knew her as Oat Milk Amanda, was how much of her life was built on watching exits, memorizing shadows, and pretending everything was fine. She loved her children fiercely. She built a fortress around them with thrifted joy and quiet discipline. And every morning, she whispered the same thing to herself in the mirror. Keep going. Keep them safe. That's all. But safety is fragile. And on one unremarkable Saturday, the locks, the plans, the prayers, none of it was enough. It was a Wednesday, on May 8th, 2024. There was nothing unusual about the air that morning in Cypress Ridge. No warning in the sky. No omen on the wind. Just school shoes by the door, a lunchbox half-zipped, and Amanda up Riz scraping the last of the peanut butter from a jar, trying to stretch one more sandwich from what little she had. She dropped the kids off at 8:15 a.m., Jackson with his comic books, Ellie clutching a half-wilted daisy from the yard, and Noah skipping with both shoelaces untied. She waved until they disappeared into the school building, then sat in her car for a full minute, quiet, thinking, before pulling off. There was a grocery stop at 10:43 a.m. Surveillance footage caught her in the baking aisle. Flour, oatmeal, eggs. No meat, no wine, just essentials. At 1:27 p.m., she texted her sister. Got the light bill covered. Don't worry, we're okay. By 3:15 p.m., she was back at the school pickup line. By 4 p.m., the blinds were drawn, the garage was closed, and her family disappeared behind their front door like every other evening in every other quiet street. Inside, it was a simple life. That night, dinner was pancakes. The kids had a tradition, breakfast for dinner on Wednesdays. Ellie hated syrup. Noah insisted on cutting his own bananas. Jackson turned on the TV and argued about what to watch. Amanda folded laundry with the hum of the dryer behind her and a sock stuck to her elbow. At 6:42 p.m., security footage from a neighbor's Ring camera showed Amanda arriving home with her children. Jackson carried a grocery bag. Amanda held a jug of milk in one hand, her keys in the other. Noah ran ahead. Ellie skipped behind. All four entered the house. No one came back out. At 7:50 p.m., Amanda texted her sister again. Bath's done. Kids winding down. I'm tired. Talk tomorrow. She never would. At 9:15 p.m., the interior security system stopped recording. It didn't glitch. It was manually disabled. Whoever did it knew the layout, knew the blind spots, knew where she kept the backup drives. And then at 10:41 p.m., from the rear patio cam, a figure appeared. Not climbing, not breaking in, just walking, straight through the gate, around the back, past the garden hose and the sandbox. A calm, steady pace, like someone returning home, like someone with a key. And from that moment on, there were no more images, just silence. A bowl of pancake batter still sat by the sink, half covered with a kitchen towel. A game controller blinked on the carpet. The dryer finished its cycle, clothes still warm inside. The house was asleep, except for the person who had just stepped in. The last ordinary day had come and gone. and no one inside that house would ever see morning. They thought it was a break-in, but there were no broken locks, no forced entry. It wasn't a break-in. It was a return. His name was Travis Cole, 29 years old, recently released from Augusta State Prison on March 2nd, 2022. 2 months later, 3 children were dead, and the only woman who ever saw him inside the house couldn't speak for 9 days. He had no job, no stable address, no known connection to Amanda Reyes. On paper, a drifter, but that was never the full story. Travis had been in and out of the system since 17. Assault, breaking and entering, threats, probation violations, a decade lost in county jails and state lockups. He wasn't a mystery to law enforcement, just a man they kept sending back out. The final conviction, home invasion and unlawful restraint, landed him 3 years. Prosecutors said he stalked a woman he once claimed had smiled too long. His own mother described him as quiet but strange, and later admitted she had stopped answering his letters 2 years into his sentence. He was flagged twice by in-prison psychologists. In both instances, he refused therapy. His final parole document read simply, "Release without supervision, nonviolent classification, no further risk." But between April and May, Travis had been seen by at least 6 people, and no one knew his name. A convenience store clerk, a city bus driver, a woman pushing her toddler in a stroller, who later said he made her skin crawl. He walked alone, always at dusk, always near neighborhoods with open garages and unlocked fences. A doorbell cam 5 blocks from Amanda's house caught him twice. Same hoodie, same stare, lingering just off the sidewalk. He never knocked. He never spoke. At 6:11 p.m. on May 12th, a neighbor's camera caught him again, sitting on the curb, across from the Reyes home. In the footage, Amanda's children are seen unloading groceries. Amanda checks the mail. She doesn't look up. He doesn't blink. Later, detectives found a photo strip tucked inside Travis's wallet. 3 blurred snapshots. A birthday party from a year before, balloons, cake. One frame showed Amanda, clapping, her eyes closed in laughter. The photo had been torn in half, folded neatly, carried with him ever since. No one knows how he got it. 1 week before the fire, Travis visited Home Value Depot twice. Receipts showed purchases for gloves, duct tape, ammonia, and a crowbar. He used a prepaid debit card. By May 13th, he had no fixed location, but the map of his movements, compiled later from CCTV, gas station footage, and witness sightings, formed a slow, deliberate loop, always circling Amanda Street, never straying more than a mile. He didn't walk far. He just waited. Some believed it was random, a tragic coincidence. Others weren't so sure. In a closed-door interview, one detective offered a theory. This wasn't robbery. He didn't come to take anything. Not money. Not possessions. He didn't break in. He walked in. And the only thing he wanted was there. One body cam clip, recorded 5:52 a.m., the morning of the fire, captured the moment a first responder stood over Amanda's shivering body. She wasn't crying. She wasn't blinking. She was staring at the house, still burning, as if someone inside was still watching her back. When Amanda Reyes first opened her eyes in the hospital, she couldn't speak. Smoke had scorched her throat raw. But her eyes, they moved fast, searching for something, someone, her children. She asked the only way she could, by not blinking. For 48 hours, there were no words, just trembling hands and a silence thick with pain. But on the 3rd day, her voice came back, barely above a whisper. She said she heard the creak first. Not the door, but the floorboard by the kitchen. The one that always squeaked when the kids snuck downstairs for snacks. Only this time, they were all asleep. Then came the footsteps. She thought it was her ex-husband at first. The way he moved heavy, deliberate. But when the living room light snapped on, her breath caught. It wasn't her ex. It was a stranger, standing barefoot, holding her largest kitchen knife. She said nothing moved in her body, except her heart. She felt it bang against her chest like it was trying to leave without her. He didn't say a word. just motion with the knife, and she obeyed. Her hands up, her lips sealed. She didn't want to die. But more than that, she didn't want her children to wake up. But they did, one by one. He tied them first. Jackson, Ellie, then Noah. He left Amanda for last. She said his face didn't twist with rage. It stayed still, calm, focused, like someone following steps in a recipe. Nothing improvised, nothing rushed. She didn't scream. Not once. Not even when he leaned in close and said, "You're going to watch. That's the only reason you're still breathing." Some parts she couldn't describe, but her hands shook when she tried, and when words failed, her eyes filled in silence. She said he made her beg. She did. She would have said anything, promised anything, but he didn't want her promises. He wanted her witness. It wasn't just about hurting her. It was about her watching them and being powerless to stop it. And then, as quickly as he came, he was gone. He lit the curtains with something from under the sink. Amanda only saw the flash. The smoke was rising before her hands were free. She said she didn't run for front door. She couldn't leave that way, not with them still inside. So she stumbled to the back, flames licking at her legs, and threw herself into the pool, the only water left in the house turning to ash. When the paramedics found her, she was half conscious, bruised, shaking, burned, but her eyes were locked on the burning house. And she didn't blink, not once. He didn't steal anything, didn't ask for money, didn't cover his tracks. He wasn't there for profit. He was there for performance. He wanted witnesses. Then he tried to erase the only one who saw everything. But Amanda lived, and now, so does the truth. Amanda Reyes would never forget that sound, not the way it started, not the metallic click of the patio door sliding open, not the faint patter of his boots against the tile floor, not the slow exhale she released, thinking maybe it was one of the kids sneaking water. But it wasn't. He didn't speak. He didn't rush. He moved like he'd been there before. Amanda was still in her nightshirt. The TV was low. The baby monitor still on. The house asleep, except her. When she saw him standing in the hallway, blocking the only way out, she didn't scream. Not yet. She thought if she stayed calm, maybe he would leave. Maybe he'd realized he had the wrong house. But he knew exactly where he was. She tried to reach for her phone. He already had it. She ran for the stairs. He dragged her back by the hair. And then her children woke up. Jackson, 10, Ellie, 8, Noah, 6. Sleepy, disoriented, crying. He tied them with extension cords in the living room. Amanda was next, face down, hands behind her back. Cable ties. He made sure she could see them. Then he began. She begged, not for herself, for them, but he didn't stop. He wanted her humiliation scene, and he wanted them to learn what fear looked like. Amanda would later say she left her body that night, not from pain, but from shame. She didn't remember what he said. She remembered what her daughter asked. "Is he going to kill us, Mommy?" She couldn't answer. By the time it was over, the house smelled like sweat and bleach. The children were gagged. Amanda was bleeding. And the man? He was calm, like he had finished a job. She didn't see him pour the liquid, but she heard the cap twist shut. She didn't see the match, but she heard the first whoosh, like the start of a storm. He lit the curtains, the sofa, then stood in front of the front door and watched it spread. Amanda was still tied when he left, but one hand, just one, had loosened. It took her 38 seconds to get free, for more to get the gag off her youngest son. She couldn't untie them all. The fire had already climbed the walls. Smoke filled the hallway. She made one decision, to get out and to come back, but there was no coming back. She leapt into the backyard pool as the windows exploded behind her. A neighbor found her clutching the side, whispering her children's names. She had no burns, no voice, just eyes locked on the flames. Paramedics wrote, nonverbal, in shock, but conscious, pupils fixed on the home, did not blink. In the hospital, Amanda said almost nothing for 8 days. When she spoke, it came in fragments. "He hurt me. They saw. I heard them screaming. And then I didn't. She remembered everything. But some things she would never say out loud. She didn't need to. The investigators knew. The nurses knew. The prosecutors knew. And the jury would know soon enough. He didn't come to steal. He didn't come to hide. He came to destroy. And to make sure they all watched. The morning after the fire, investigators combed through soot and ash. But it wasn't just the structure they were trying to rebuild. It was a timeline. And every second mattered. Amanda Reyes, the only one to survive, couldn't speak. Not yet. But her body held the evidence. Inside a sealed assault kit collected hours after the attack was his DNA. It was clean, undeniable, and already in the system. Travis Cole, age 29, a name buried in the backlog of Pearly records. He'd been out for just 4 months. Prior convictions, assault with intent, burglary, stalking, released early for good behavior. But there was no known link between Amanda and Travis. No past run-ins. No shared circles. Not even a loose acquaintance. So why her? Detectives scoured the footage from nearby intersections and retail security systems. Around 10:58 p.m., just 15 minutes after the last known ping from Amanda's router, a man matching Cole's description appears on grainy ATM footage, withdrawing cash. 2 hours later, another sighting. This time blurry, from a convenience store camera outside Albuquerque, 240 miles away. Same shoes, same jacket. The timestamp was enough. What followed wasn't chase. It was a race against what-ifs. What if he vanished again? What if he crossed state lines? What if he hurt someone else? An anonymous tip came from a halfway house director in El Paso. One of their parolees had recognized Travis on the news. He said Cole had passed through the previous week. Quiet, polite, didn't seem dangerous. 8 days after the murders, Las Cruces PD located a man sleeping under a rust-colored tarp behind an abandoned rail station. He had no weapons, no ID, just a worn hoodie and a bus ticket stub in his sock. They approached cautiously. He didn't resist, didn't ask why. He looked up, slow, calm, and then he smiled. A detective who was there would later recall. He wasn't proud. He wasn't scared either. He looked satisfied, like he crossed something off a list. Back at the station, he asked for coffee, said nothing else. And in the booking photo, one detail stood out. Not the bruises, not the swollen lip, not the dried dirt on his neck, but the same faint smile. A private smile, the kind that doesn't need an audience. He'd walked through their unlocked door like it was meant for him. No robbery, no ransom, just intent. And when they asked him why he did it, he didn't answer. He didn't break in. He walked in. The sliding patio door had been left slightly ajar, maybe from letting the dog out earlier, maybe not closed all the way. A detail no one noticed. A detail that would change everything. But the most chilling moment wasn't his entry. It was what happened just before it. Investigators would later review the footage frame by frame. And right there, at 10:40 and 17 seconds p.m., the figure paused. 12 full seconds just standing at the edge of the patio. No movement, just watching. What was he waiting for? Inside, Amanda had just finished folding laundry on the living room couch. A mug of tea still warm. The TV remote beside her untouched. She would later say something felt off, like the air shifted, like something was watching her. But by the time she moved to check, it was already too late. Fingerprints were partial, smudged along the doorframe, a muddy boot print by the mat, but no signs of struggle at the point of entry. It was quiet, deliberate. This wasn't opportunistic. He didn't wander in looking for valuables. He didn't hesitate out of fear. He waited because he already knew. The house was vulnerable. The people inside softer targets than locked doors could ever protect. A neighbor's security cam 2 blocks away caught a man walking briskly earlier that night. Same hoodie, same build. One detective would later say he'd been watching for days, maybe weeks, waiting for that one window, that one mistake. Amanda would never again leave a door unlocked. But that night, she thought they were safe. He didn't break in randomly. He didn't knock on doors until one opened. He waited. He watched. 3 blocks from Amanda Reyes' home, less than a mile, was a county-funded transitional housing unit for recently released parolees. Travis Cole was assigned to room 207, a window with a view that overlooked nothing in particular, except a stretch of houses he didn't belong to. One of them was hers. No alarm system. No barking dog. 1 car in the driveway every night. Every morning at 7:13 a.m., Amanda backed out, pausing at the mailbox before pulling off. Same route. Same timing. Routine is a luxury most of us take for granted. For her, it was structure. For him, it was a blueprint. Surveillance logs later recovered from a discarded spiral notebook in his room would show her name, her kids' names. What time the lights in her living room usually turned off. One entry read, "Leaves backlight on too long. Alone a lot. Laughs loud. Sometimes with the kids, sometimes on the phone." He never spoke to her, never followed her into a store, never so much as smiled in her direction. But in his mind, she was already his. He saw a woman who didn't lock her screen door until after sunset. A woman who let her kids ride bikes while folding laundry by the window. A woman who, to the wrong kind of man, looked vulnerable. It wasn't a moment of impulse. It wasn't about attraction. It wasn't even about rage. It was about power. For 8 weeks, he circled her home like a shadow, on foot, sometimes from a block away, other times from across the street, behind a stop sign or a parked car. Not once did she look over her shoulder. Not once did she know he was there. And when investigators asked how he chose his target, he answered without hesitation. She made it easy. But the truth is, she didn't. She locked her doors. She loved her kids. She lived modestly. She had no enemies. She wasn't careless. She was just seen by the wrong eyes. In his confession, Travis said, "I didn't pick her. I watched her until she belonged to me. Not a burglary. Not a crime of opportunity. A ritual. A build-up. An invasion that began long before he ever stepped into her house." There were 29 other families on that block. 29 doors he passed. 29 names he never wrote down. So why her? Because she was home. Because she felt safe. Because no one told her he was coming. And by the time anyone knew, he was already inside. He waited until the kids were asleep. He knew what room was theirs. He knew where she kept the spare key. It wasn't a break-in. It was a homecoming for him. She sat in courtroom 7B on a cold Tuesday morning. The same courtroom where parents usually settle custody disputes, where low-level offenses pass unnoticed through the system. But on that day, every seat was filled. Reporters, law students, strangers who never met her, but knew her story. Amanda Reyes, 33, the only one who lived. She was called to the stand at 9:17 a.m. A white blouse, no makeup. The courtroom clerk asked her to spell her name. She did. And then, for the next 4 hours, she spoke. Not everything, but enough. She remembered the footsteps. She remembered the plastic tie around her wrists. She remembered her children calling out for her. And she remembered his face. Close, calm, deliberate. The words he said. There were things she couldn't say. Some because she didn't want to relive them. Others because no words existed for that kind of horror. But the tremble in her hands told the story. The way her shoulders locked as she described being forced to watch told the rest. Prosecutors showed footage. 6:42 p.m., Amanda and the children arriving home. Burned pattern maps. Photos of the children's remains. The zipper from Noah's Spider-Man backpack. A smoke-blackened sneaker. When they finished, the courtroom didn't move. No coughs. No whispers. Just the hum of the air conditioning. Across from her sat Travis Cole. Dark jacket. No tie. His plea, not guilty. The defense claimed childhood brain trauma. They claimed he had visions. They called it a blackout. They never looked her in the eye. On cross-examination, Amanda was asked if she remembered what he said just before lighting the fire. She didn't speak right away. She just nodded once. Then, after a beat, he said, "No one gets to forget me." And no one did. The prosecution rested. The jury was dismissed at 4:06 p.m. By 5:53 p.m., they had a verdict. 1 hour, 47 minutes. Not long, but just enough to say they heard her. In that courtroom, there were no winners, but there was clarity, and it belonged to her. They brought him in through the side door. No shackles on his feet, just the soft creak of his belt chain echoing against the tile floor of courtroom 302. Travis Cole stood for sentencing the same way he stood when they found him. Quiet, still, almost blank. A man who'd already done everything he came to do. The courtroom was at capacity. Rows packed with people who would never forget Amanda's name, or the names of her children, carved into silence. First came the DNA, the footage, the burns, the chain of evidence that could not be unraveled. Then came Amanda, for hours on the stand. 1 hour to breathe. She told him what he did, how he moved, what he said, the way her son's voice trembled before it disappeared forever. Her voice didn't crack. It dragged, like every word weighed more than it should. At one point, the stenographer paused, wiped her eyes, and asked her to repeat the last sentence. Amanda didn't repeat it. She just nodded. Then the victim impact statements. Amanda's mother went first. "I still set out for a plate sometimes," she whispered. "I don't know why." And then Amanda, dressed in black, hair pulled back, no tears, just the calm of someone who already survived what most people couldn't imagine. "You took everything," she said, looking directly at him, "but not my will." There was no outburst, no gasp, just silence, thick, human, sacred. The judge spoke last, his voice steady, but every syllable a stone. "Evil doesn't always wear a mask," he said. "Sometimes it waits for the lights to go out." Then came the sentence. 3 consecutive life terms. No parole, no appeal, no daylight. And still, Travis Cole didn't flinch. He didn't look away, didn't cry, didn't even blink. The only movement? Amanda, exhaling. Once. A breath she'd been holding since that night. We asked the law to give us justice. But when justice meets a graveyard, what does it really restore? If he stood in front of you, what would you say to a man like that? Let us know in the comments.